Hello friends, welcome back to Getting Started with Python. In today's video, we will be discussing the Python data types. So let's get started. So now the first thing comes in our mind, what is a data type? So data type is a kind of data that can be stored in a variable. In our last video, we saw what a variable. Variable is like a box, the labeled box where we put or store our data in. And now we have to tell it like what kind of data it is. So that's what is called a data type, as the name says. And there are different operations that can be performed on those variable, as we saw in our operator video. There are variables and we can use different operator like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So that was the some examples of operations. So what we do, we perform operations on variables. And what kind of operation can be performed on a variable, that depends on the data type. So for example, if we are adding something like a number, that is a number per data type. And that so for example, if it's 2 plus 1, the answer will be 3. But if a 2 and 1 is a string and we are putting a using a concatenation operation which says 2 plus 1, that will be actually 21. We will deep dive into these details in the couple of next slides, and we will see like how what kind of data types are supported in Python, and what kind of operation we can do on them. So in this data type, I will be covering in two parts. In the first part, I will be covering numbers, which are numeric data types, string and Boolean. And in the next part, I will be talking about the containers. So what containers are? So containers are the kind of objects that holds number of other type of object. So what is an object? Object is it's a programming terms that we use which can have some operations performed on them. So in Python, everything is object. So I think that's enough at this point to know about objects. We will be covering more in-depth details about the inheritance and objects later in the later videos. So for now, the containers are kind of big, as it says, a container that can hold other items in it. So there are different, like here, there are 4 types of container. One is tuple, list, set, and dictionary. So as you see, there are the quoted marks there, like a tuple, list, set, and dict. Dict is for the classes that we will see how we can use them to use these data types. So in this part, let's start with numbers. So this is how everything fit together. So we have number. Number are again classified into 3 parts: integer, floating point, and complex numbers. So these 3 categories of number pretty much covers all type of numbers. And string is a simple text of data, and the Boolean. So Boolean is a yes or no type of data. We use Boolean data type to represent that data, if it's there or not there, yes or no, 0 or 1. The last data type is container, and that contains set, dictionary, list, and tuple. So let's start with number. So first we will be going over this slide, and then we'll go to our REPL.it to see this, how this works in the action. So here, as you see, it's a number. So there are, as we saw, there are 3 type of number: integer, floating point, and complex. So what's the difference? So first thing is, integer is defined as class int, as you see, and a number just without any dot notation is a number. It's like a whole number, full number. And in the floating point, you represent with the decimal. So you have a number and it parts the decimal point. So use decimal point, that becomes the float. And the complex number is used to represent the number which are to show its imaginary part as well. So for the simple cases, you do not need complex numbers, but it's just for covering sake. I wanted to bring this in here, like this exists, and if you come across to solve such problems, please feel free to make use of complex class right here. So it has the first part is a real part and the second part is an imaginary part. And now there is some utility functions or methods in Python with like type or isInstance. So why we use them? We can use them to see what type of data type it is. So there is a type, and as you say in parenthesis, we can use this function to see what kind of data type it has. And isInstance is another function that if you pass a data and say this is my int, then it says if it's true or not. So now let's jump into the REPL code editor and see how everything really makes sense. All right, so I'm in my REPL code editor. So I executed these examples little before, and this is the same code repo that I mentioned in the video below down there, and I have each file for each video or each concept. So basics and operators and variables we have covered before, and in this video I have created a DataTypes.py. So to understand or to play around with any of these examples or to learn Python, you can simply clone this repo or you can fork this repo into your REPL instance or anywhere where you want to execute your Python. But I would recommend REPL just because you don't need any installation for that, and you can refer to my old video about how to get started with the REPL IDE. All right, so once you check in this fork this code or check out this code in your own space, you can go in here and open this terminal right here in the rightmost corner and check it's like where I am, if I'm in my present working directory or not. So, and I would like to, so that I don't have to execute whole command again, I would want to go in my current work directory, which is source Python and basics. And now to run this script or the Python file, I run python datatypes.py. So what happens here? So that's how you can run. So now, as we saw in the slide, the x is a variable and which has a value 3. And now this is an integer data type. So what I'm printing here, I'm printing the type of this data type, which should be int because I'm passing a int. And next line, I'm checking it if it is really an int or not. And I will comment out the other code so that we can just look at one thing at a time. Okay, so once you have opened this datatypes.py, you can check where you are, and you should be in your Python basics folder, like inside the folder where your file is, to run this file. So Python data types like this. And now what we are doing here is we are having a data type right here, and you have a type, so it will tell us what type it is, which is an int. And in isInstances, so we are passing a variable and we are checking what class it is. So it should say true in that case. So if we comment it, so first what happens, it says data type is, this is my print command because I'm checking or executing the code related with integer int, and now the print type 3 print it like as it's a class integer. Now what happens when I use my isInstance? So how isInstance works, x is a variable and what type it is, it's a int. So when I execute this one, it gives me the if it's true or false. So now it says it's true. So we will see in the following in a minute what true and false Boolean variables are. All right, so now let's see how the float works like. So I have the same a 3, but now we are using the floating point, the decimal point representation for this one. So now let's run it. So it runs the data type first for integer and then float, and it says it's a class int. Okay, that's a good one. So why it says int? Because as you see, I didn't change it. I could left it 3. So it has to be x so that we don't have to keep on typing. And that's a great reason why we need variable. All right, so now you see the first case was the int and the second case is a float. Now let's check out very quickly how the complex number looks like. Okay, so sometimes this REPL can be connected or disconnected depending on like how much time you have been working with it. So if that happens, you just reload your IDE or refresh the browser and just check your present working directory, because every time it refreshes, it goes back to your home folder. So you want to come back to your present working directory again. All right, so now I want to run Python data types, and now let's see in the complex what it does. So the same, so I do clear so that you can see better right here. So we have data type int, and then we float and the complex, and again, okay, so we didn't remove this one. Let's see what happens now. All right, there you go. So data type complex, and it says it's true. So isInstance is the method or function to check if this variable belongs in this class or its a variable is of data type complex. So that's the syntax. And again, this is for a real part of a number, and this is the imaginary part. All right, now let's move on to the next data type, which is a string. So let's go to the slide for this one. All right, so the string is actually three type of, so string is a sequence of the text characters, as you can see, and there's a 3 ways to represent it, like in a single quote, double quote, and triple quote. And also a triple quote we can use to comment out our code in block way, in a big block. And also one important thing to keep in mind, a string is immutable. That means you cannot modify a string once it's declared or defined right here. So I will show you what does it mean right here in this example. So let's take it out and let's put back in a triple quote example. And I'm going to show you one by one like what it is. So first thing is I wrote the same similar different strings, single quote string, double quote string, and triple quote string in 3 ways, and I'm printing them down. So now, all right. Okay, so so because I didn't comment. Okay, there you go. All right, so now as you see, so this is for integer and this is for string. So now you see it prints single quote string, double quote string, and triple quote string. And now what this I is, okay, so what here we are doing, I'm showing you how we can see it's immutable. So to show what is immutable, first I picked one letter of this string of single quote. So what 0 and what 1 means? 1 and 0 means it's like so this string is stored in a space, or you can say in a data structure internal, where every character has its own number or index starting from number 0. So as if I say single quote is that which is a string variable, and if I say 0 like this, it will access the first character of this string. Let's see, there you go. So it's right here. So as if I say 1, let's see what it does. It picked up, it retrieved the I, and so on. So now I want to show you what does it mean it cannot modify at a given index. So here, and actually this code will error out. So now what I'm trying to do, I access my second letter and I want my I in here to be replaced with G, for example. That's called mutating or changing a string. Okay, so I set a single quote at index 1, which is a second letter, replace that letter with letter G. And now I want to, first let's see if we can do it or not. So it should give me an error. There you go. It said type error, string object does not support item assignment. So that's the kind of compile time error. You will get this error when you're trying to do something which is not expected. So I'm commented out because I want my script to run. So, but I left it here for the demonstration purpose so that you know a string is immutable and cannot be modified. All right. Next, move on to the next data type, which is a Boolean. So Boolean, as it says, it's a true or a false. It has two values, whether it could be true, yes or no. And it uses the class name that Python terminology it uses is defined by a class called bool. And if you say print type true or false, it will say it's of type bool, as you see right here, All right, let's try to run it in our IDE. Okay, so I will move this command out of here and put it out of its way. Okay, so now the Boolean, and what I'm doing here, Boolean is represented by true and false, and as you can see the first letter is capital and true and false. And what I do, I just use it if it's a true, just for sake of checking if its checking is true or checking false. We will see how this conditional this code chunk of code means in the next in the following topics where we talking about decision making. Okay, so here let's run it. So what it says down there, class bool, right here, the class bool and the false bool, and checking false because it's true is not equal to false, and so on. All right. So in this video, we will be seeing just these three data types: integer, string, and Boolean. And in the next slide, in the next video, I will be continuing the container, what the container data types are, and I will be covering list, tuple, set, and dictionary. So I will see you in a bit.